Hi, welcome to Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. I'm Christi Friesen, and guess what we're going to make today? A carousel horse focal bead. Doesn't that sound fun? This is what it looks like. It gets to use not only polymer clay, which you know I love, but all kinds of sparkly jewels as well. Doesn't that seem like a good time? Let me show you what you're going to need to make this. First of all, polymer clay. I suggest something white for the body or white cream mix for the horse's body, but you can make the horse whatever color you like. And then something fun and festive for his mane. I use a lot of pinks and purples because it went well with the jewels that I wanted to use. Then you're going to need some jewels. And I liked these little Rivolis. This is a Swarovski crystal with a lot of fun flash to it. Whatever color floats your boat. We've got some various sizes here, including some of these little teeny ones that have a hot fix backing. We'll talk about that in a bit. You'll also need a little garnet bead. It's about a 3 millimeter, just a nice round garnet bead. That makes a perfect eyeball. Any of the crystals and the beads that you use for this project should be glass, stone, or crystal, not plastic or any other substance that melts in the oven, because these pieces will be added to the clay and then baked with the clay. So make sure they're glass or crystal. Then you'll need a couple of tools. I recommend wire cutter and pliers. And if you can get a nice, good quality pair, you're going to enjoy your crafting much better. You'll use that to cut some 28 gauge wire. Just a little snippet or two of 28 gauge wire will be perfect, but you will need just a little bit of that to attach the eye. I like to have a little bit of Polybonder on hand. Polybonder is a perfect glue to help make sure that all those crystals stay permanently into your clay, because it's made specifically for using with polymer clay. And finally, just a couple of sculpting tools. A needle tool or other tools that you have around will be just the perfect things to add the little details to your horse. I use the needle tool a lot, and a tool with a sort of a dowel on the end. Those would work just fine. And finally, if you have some mica powder around the house, use that. It's just a tinted mica shiny powder, adds a little bit of color to the piece. If you've got some of that and a paintbrush to apply, you're good to go. All right, so gather up all your stuff and let's make a horse. First thing I did was mix up a little bit of white with some creamy color in it so it wouldn't be pure white. That way, when specks or lint or whatever gets in it, it won't look bad. It'll already have some color to it. And you just roll yourself out a ball about the size of a small hard-boiled egg yolk. When you're rolling the ball, that helps you see if there's any creases, any weird stuff, cat hairs, anything like that you need to get out of the clay. Then once your clay is in a nice ball, I'm just using my hands in a bit of a wedgie shape to make a little bit of a taper. This is going to be the whole neck and head of this horse. So we're going to want enough clay here for the whole thing. So you can see kind of the shape I've got. This is where the snout's going to be, so we had it a little bit more tapered, not into a point, just sort of a blunt, rounded end. Then all I do, this is a very simplified horse, so you don't have to go crazy with correct anatomical detailing with the fetlocks and whatever it is horses have. You just have a nice curvy piece. And all I'm doing is using my fingers to kind of curve the neck and the head. See how that looks? Now once I've got this head and neck kind of curved the way I like it, I use my fingers just to pinch along the ridge here. This will be his arch of his mane. All the hairs will be coming off of there, and this is his forehead. To make his head look a little bit more foreheady, I'm just going to use my finger to kind of press, and it creates just that little bit of a ridge line. So see what we've got? Nice little ridge line there. Usually that makes his snout too big, so I press it back. If his nose gets completely out of shape, you can give him a little nose job. Just pinch a little off the end and round it up. All right, so this is what the shape that we have. We've got a nice horsey head and a nice arched mane area. Since this is going to be just the head, and we don't want it to look like he got decapitated, let's just pull. See, I've got my thumb in there. Pull that clay so that it makes like a nice gentle arch, and if you twist it a little bit, that looks very carousel-y, like a ribbon. Now it's time to put an eyeball in there so this really starts looking like a horse. That's when that little tool with the dowel end comes in very handy, because I can press a hole right where that eyeball is going to be. Now, eyeball beads, and we remember we talked about this being garnet, you can't just stick them in and hope for the best, because when the clay hardens in the oven, those beads are going to pop right out. They don't stick to the clay. So you're going to use a bit of wire to help make an anchor for your bead into the clay by creating a little loop and twist. So I've held it with my pliers and I'm twisting with my fingers so that that little bit of wire twist goes all the way up to the head of the bead, then trim the end off. And when you trim the end off, make sure you aim at somebody so that it goes right in their eyes. Don't do that. Make sure you get away from people when you cut the end off. And then just bend a little hook in the end so that your bead has a little bit of a tail. That's the twist in the hook so that that stays in the clay. Then stick it in, hook side first, and press your bead in. Press firmly. Get it in there about halfway so that that eye really locks in. Doesn't that look good? That's kind of the focal piece of your whole horse. So you want that eye to look nice. Now horses have nostrils, or so I've been told. So I'm going to just take a little tool and poke a little hole in the nostril area, just a little indentation. And we might as well give them a bit of a smile. A needle tool or anything with a nice little curvy end here will give them a little bit of a happy, well, we better make him happy, a little bit of a happy smile. So there's our horse's face. Pretty simple, right? It's nice to break an animal down just into the few features that it really needs to look good. Now, since this guy is going to have a carousel halter and jewels all on him, we're going to want to give him a little bit of a halter on there. So first of all, let's do the ear so that we have somewhere for the halter to be. Just a little ball turned into a teardrop, and I'm going to curve it slightly and press it right on. This is his ear. And now I know where the halter is going to be because we're going to have a piece that goes from under the neck. This is just a piece of golden colored clay that I've twisted into a snake. And you just twist it back behind him and press it on. The nice thing about polymer clay is, generally speaking, if you just give it a little bit of a push, it'll just stick right to itself. Then we're also going to have the little part that goes on his forehead. Now, in a real carousel horse, he would also have probably something in for his bridle, in his mouth, and all that area. But that's an awful lot of hardware in the face area, and I don't think he really needs it. He's a freeform horse. He can go where he pleases. So just that little bit is enough. Now we're going to start making a bit of detail on there, adding some of our happy little crystals. I've got a little ball of clay of the same color as the halter, and I'm pressing that baby in, flattening it out. Then I can put the first of my little Rivoli rhinestones right in there and press it in. Now, you notice that this does not have any kind of glue backing on it. So what I'm going to want to do is press all these in while I'm making the piece, and then I can lift them out, put a touch of glue, put them all back in, and then it goes right in the oven. If you forget to do that, you can glue them on after they come out of the oven. It's okay, I won't tell anybody. Okay, so that's the first start. Now we need some mane on there so that you can add more rhinestones. Because, you know, sometimes you want to put them on the rhinestones. So what I usually do is I gather up all the little scraps and bits that are lying around and just mix them all up into a wad. And if you roll and fold this wad and roll and fold again, each time you roll and fold it, you see how all those colors start to mix and those stripes get thinner and thinner and thinner. Once you have them thin enough, you can take a little piece of this and twist it right off of there, and look at that fun little mane bit you've got. Isn't that nice? Look at that twisted bit. The more the merrier, and this is going to become the mane. Sometimes they'll make 2 or 3 of these in similar but different color schemes so that they all look like they belong together, but they have slightly different colors mixed in with them. See how we've got some purples and some blues, and there's even some with more periwinkle in there, which I tend to like. So once you've got a little handful of those, the best thing to do is put a little bit of a background so that the main stripes have something to rest against. So I took a little bit of that extra and I just flattened it out into an oval, and I'm flattening that oval with my fingers into just like a little flat horse afro. We'll make it a little bit smaller and flatten that right back here. This is where all of his mane is going to go. And it gives a nice backing so that all the little pieces of mane can go right on top of that. And that way you don't have quite as much to fill because there's no air hiding around back there. So I'm just going to press some of these right on. Isn't that nice? We'll just keep going. But we want to go ahead and give him some in the forehead area right off the bat because that's more fun to get started there. So I'm pressing some of those snakes that we just did. Make a little smaller. Push that in there. And here we go. Make him curl up a little bit. Give him some, you know, drama, like the wind is flowing through his hair. Horses like that sort of thing. It's very carousel. So see how it's starting to build up your hair and your mane there? Any little sloppy areas, you just put a little bit more mane strands in there. And when you're putting them all on the back of the mane there, you want to make sure that they're not just sticking out without other bits of mane to get behind them, because otherwise those will be a little bit more likely to break off as you wear it. So you're going to want to make sure that there's a couple of clumps together for strength. All right, I'm just going to put 1 or 2 more on here, and I think you get the idea of where we're going. See how well that's doing already? Now sometimes you find a place here or there that's just like the perfect spot for another Rivoli. So I'm going to press that large one in place, and I have a feeling that I'm going to want 2 or 3 more smaller ones in that area. So we'll put our large stone in first, right in there, and then we'll pick up some of the little small ones as well. The hot fix are wonderful because they have a glue backing, and the glue just melts itself right into the clay while it goes in the oven and does the gluing for you. You don't have to put any additional glues on there. So see what we've got going on? You just keep adding more and more mane until it gets completely full, like this one. Isn't that lovely? All the extra little beady bits there. I've got all the mane, and if you'll notice, it's got a bit of mica powder. Let me show you that right now. Let's say we wanted just a little bit of color in that nose so that you can see it a little bit better. Just a tiny touch of mica powder will go right on the nose area, and maybe just a little bit of purple around his eye. However you want to add mica to make your piece shine, it's going to go directly onto the clay. All right, once you've got everything on there that you like and your horse has got as much dazzle as it can stand, then it's time to bake your clay. And polymer clay does not air dry. You do have to put it in the oven for it to firm up. All of your clay packages will have the directions on the package that tells you exactly how to bake it. Generally speaking, you preheat your oven, you put your piece in for 30 minutes or more, and then you let it cool completely before you play with it. And then your piece will be ready to go. Well, not exactly. We needed to put a hole in there first. If you forget, and one reason why I didn't tell you before is sometimes we forget to put things in there, a handheld drill will make a nice little hole in your finished baked polymer clay. So don't stress if you forget it. You can always do that, or you can even glue something on the back and wear it as a brooch. But your needle tool is going to make a nice little hole right through the forehead, and it goes right through that mane if you want to put the hole in ahead of time. Sometimes I don't know until after I get done whether it's going to be a bead or whether it's going to be a brooch. So you can always add that afterwards. But you see how that needle tool goes just right straight through there and out. You don't need to put anything in there while it bakes. That hole will stay open. All right, so your piece is baked. It's ready to wear, ready to show off all your friends. They're going to love it. They're all going to want you to make one for them. Luckily, all the things you needed to make this, polymer clay, millions of happy crystals just waiting for you, and tools are all available right here at firemountaingems.com.